Welcome to The Dope, an online business magazine committed to the cause of sustainability in the travel and hospitality industry. This is Shoba Mohan from Rare India. Very proud to be championing this cause with The Dope, an issue very, very close to my heart, in an effort to make a difference in why and how people travel, and as an industry, how we can be and bring about a change. Today we have with us the dynamic and articulate ADG of tourism, Ms Rupinder Brar. Elegant and a great representation of India now. I think she's perfectly cut for the position to spearhead India as a global destination, without losing focus or sight of the potential of the Indian traveler. If any of you have seen Dekho Apna Desh, you will know what I mean. Spinning tale after tale. This series, a Ministry of Tourism initiative, has used nostalgia, festivals, women power, nature, heritage, wellness to create interest for travel to India and within India. Welcome to the show, ma'am. It is so good to see you, and thank you for taking this time out for us. I know you have a very, very busy schedule.
Always a pleasure to chat with you, Shoba.
To begin with, I've been seeing Dekho Apna Desh. We've met, and I know how passionate you're about India, and I can also see that that passion to do more and how to get more and more value, and also to use this time effectively. What's your perspective about the tourism potential for India?
Thanks, Shoba, for kick-starting the conversation on my very, very intensely favorite subject, as I love to call it these days. But before that, I must also thank you for a lovely introduction. I don't know whether I deserve it, but nevertheless, thank you for that. What is the potential? I think the potential is so deep diving is required that we haven't kind of looked into domestic tourism the way we should have. Probably because I think this is home for all of us. So we look over things that are very familiar, and we probably don't even realize sometimes the touristic potential that has been there. It's nothing new that is there. We've had it for centuries, but the whole sense of ownership that, hey, here is a civilization. I wouldn't even call ourselves just a country. We are a whole civilization spanning thousands and thousands of years. And so there's been so much of building blocks of culture, heritage, both built and the natural heritage, the arts and the crafts and the cultures that have developed over a period of time, the cuisine, the embroidery styles, the dance forms, the music forms. I think we are spoiled for choice. And if we even look within ourselves as a country, we are so vast that when you're growing in one part of the country, the chance that you had exposure to a different part of your own country is also not very high. So within India sits such a canvas, a myriad place that there is so much that we all need to see. And I mentioned that in all the webinars that you referred to, and it's a personal journey of learning. Every single webinar leaves me more humble than before, because the people in our country are so amazing, and they've been creating so much wealth and treasure. And I do believe that we owe it to ourselves to bring out all those treasures, the jewels and the gems that are hidden from the world.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I always think is the initiative you're doing. The beauty about Dekho Apna Desh is that it reaches out to the Indian audience to not only show them their country, it also reaches out to people around the world who know India but only know pockets of India. Now that's the most wonderful thing. So I mean, I think, in my opinion, Dekho Apna Desh is a sure winner. How did the idea come about? How did this whole thing pan out? It would make a very interesting story, and I'd like you to share that.
Yeah, I think so. That's where every cloud, they say, has a silver lining. And the pandemic, we must thank the pandemic for pushing us to think out of the box. Typically you work in a system, you're used to traveling, you're going to do promotionals in a particular manner. So when lockdown phase 1 started at the end of March, obviously we were very, very concerned with the impact on tourism and hospitality, on health conditions, on the way the world suddenly was brought to a standstill. So for some time there was obviously deep concern and also a sense of gloom that how's the world actually now going to look at tourism. So while sitting in the office over discussions, it just struck us that, why don't we use this as an opportunity to discover for ourselves and to recover and discover, right? For ourselves, and also to start showcasing it through this wonderful platform that we are connecting through even right now. Why don't we discover the potential of technology and reach out? Then the next question was that, okay, fine. So what is it that we want to showcase? Using technology, fair enough. But do we want to push the same promotional material the way we've been doing it? Again, a little bit of thinking showed that no, Dekho Apna Desh has to be, it's something citizen-centric. People have to be a part of this movement. Nothing that we do is for us or by us. The belief that drives me in running Dekho Apna Desh on behalf of the ministry is that it's your program. And we just, play the role, as I say, of a sutradhar. So we bring people who have the knowledge or the offering or the passion to showcase their neighborhood, their areas around, their knowledge about some arts or crafts, and showcase it to all of us. And that's why, Shobha, when we first started thinking that how professionally, should we be doing it? Should it be a studio setting? And said, no, that will take away from the fun of it. There has to be no format to it. There has to be no structure to it, so that we leave the individuality in each episode. And my only suggestion when people ask that what is it that we should showcase, do you want us to do it in a particular manner? And I think when you also did one with us, my only one suggestion or request or takeaway is that when people move away from the platform an hour or so after logging into Dekho Apna Desh, their only sense should be, yaar chalo chalte hain, dekh ke aate hain, na sundar hai. If we can, and I'm not even saying that all of us are going to be able to travel all the destinations that are going to get showcased. It's possible, not even possible perhaps. But even if we can create that jaspa, that feeling, that, hey, my country is so beautiful, it has so much in it. Why don't I go at least some places? So, of course, we took some cue from the last year's Independence Day address of the Honorable Prime Minister, where he himself, I think he's such a passionate person for tourism that why don't every one of us decide that let's tick off 15 places? It's not such a hard challenge. I'm sure we all do travel, but we perhaps don't travel with that sense of purpose behind it. Yeah. So this probably gives it a little more structure, gives it a little more thought behind, and also that little sense that it's my country. And every time that I'm putting pictures on Instagram that, hey, I went there and had a glass of chai or had a bonda or had a thepla or a dhokla or whatever, it's somewhere you're showcasing and you're with pride owning up what is truly yours. So I think these were the kind of sentiments that drove us to start Dekho Apna Desh.
Yeah, and it just comes through. What comes through immediately is the authenticity. Simply because you didn't mastermind it, and so the one thing that comes through very very strongly is the authenticity of each of the programs. And
I'll interrupt you. The joke that goes is, this is like ghar ka khana.
Exactly.
So you have bhindi made in 9 different homes in on the same day, and many a times in offices when we all have this pull-in lunch, and in summers because there are fewer vegetables, so you have everyone's tiffin box suddenly opening a bhindi, but every bhindi style is different.
Absolutely.
And that's the beauty of it all. And I think that's the beauty of our country, and we must certainly not lose it. And that's why the overarching thought was that it's your program, you bring it forth, you drive it. And that's why we've had people not only who are as a profession engaged in the profession of tourism or hospitality, but people who've just been travelers. And they're all working hard. They're putting their pictures together. They're putting their videos together. They're cobbling some stuff together. I think for me, that's
That
what
is
really,
absolutely.
it's the biggest takeaway as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, the authenticity and the passion of the people who are presenting, it really comes through. That you've spoken about cuisine. I just wanted to tell you, when we start to promote, when we talk about cuisine programs to India, one of the things we tell operators or travelers is that home cooking is very, very different to what you find in restaurants. And when you travel to these places, that cuisine, that is authentic. Somebody can probably replicate like a sambar in Delhi, but when you're traveling in Tamil Nadu and you're stopping at a small place or a little like a military hotel or something like that in southern India, the taste and the flavors are very, very different. So the channel reaches out to the travel fraternity. The DOPE reaches out to the travel fraternity, and we've spoken about how we can. You're already driving that change. People are beginning to think differently. So, how do you think the industry can support and help in promoting India? On a second note, we will come to responsible tourism. But on this first, how do you think the industry can engage stronger?
So, Shoba, thanks for also reminding me something that I forget in all my passion for Dekho Apna Desh, that when we are bringing these webinars, the people who actually log in are people from all over the world. We've had the analytic done, and people from more than 60 countries have actually logged in, and there are countries from all the continents. And I also, as I said, why is it a humbling exercise? It's humbling in more ways than one. We have a lady who logs in from England. And we run these programs at 11 a.m. live. So when we started running the program, I got her comments in the chat box, and she said, I'm logging in from England. And I asked her a question on the chat that it must be very early hours for you in England. So how come you are logged in live? She said, I actually put an alarm and wake up to watch it. And I said, but why do you do that? We put it as a repository. On the recorded versions are available on the Ministry of Tourism's website, so you can always see them later. She said, no, but I want to be part of the journey when you're actually doing the program. And she continued to log on live. And, so I think stories like these encourage us and they push us, but they also tell us the potential of the medium and the potential of making the whole experience of tourism an experiential and an immersive one. So yes, the destination, so to say, as far as a monument goes, of course, monuments have to be seen, they have to be visited before the story can even begin. But once you get there, how to really walk the path of those monuments in terms of a storytelling in a way that it comes alive. If you're going to a temple of the 11th century, I think the challenge for all of us is that for a traveler, we have to recreate that experience.
Correct.
And that experience cannot come without the sense of involvement and passion. Yes. You should not be reading the story as if it was just on a Wikipedia. Of course, the Wikipedia gives you the basic facts. But then we as an industry at various levels need to create the experience back for the traveler, so that you get a sense that, okay, if you're traveling to a castle or a fort, the entire thing has to come alive. You have to get that sense. I think that the whole thing of show and tell has to come through in our experiences. And that's where I think the industry will also need to start thinking a little out of the box. While a lot of the operators and the entire assembly chain, I should say, is trying to work a lot into the immersive or the more experiential part of it. But I think we still have a long way to go on that. A lot of the itineraries continue to remain, on the beaten path. And we certainly need to step out of the comfort zone if we really want to showcase what India is all about. And India is certainly a lot of the monuments, yes, but it's beyond. You have to get into the socio-economic and the cultural part of those monuments. And you also, while going back into history and while going back into the culture of our ancient land, but you also have to very delicately meander it back to the contemporary and the current times.
Exactly.
Because India is such a beautiful mix, if I may say, of so much ancient and so much of the modern. So I think we when we do a business of tourism and hospitality, I think we must realize that yes, bottom lines of course are critical and are important, and they must drive us because we are in the business of tourism and hospitality. However, we must understand our role in the whole process of how we become the ambassadors for our own land in the process.
Thank you for that, and it just opens up several ideas in my head, how to promote. And I also believe the smaller places that are hitherto unknown, create a differentiation for you. I mean, you will be seen as somebody who takes the trouble to go and check out new places, new experiences. And instead of doing a singular heritage experience, there are festivals, there is cuisine, there are people, there are powerful initiatives. You've seen, I mean, how many Dekho Apna Desh sessions have been up until now?
44 till yesterday.
44, fantastic. And what has been your favorite experience? I mean, as a experience or as a town or city?
That's a tough one to answer. That's actually like picking a baby.
Yeah, I know. No, but I mean, in general, how...
in terms of, I should say, the presentation, and in terms of how we could carry the message across, some of the best ones that came through. And it's not only because the destination was what it was, but in terms of the value that they created for the audience.
Correct.
The one that we did from Mysuru on the Cherapatna toys and the inlay work on the rosewood got very good traction.
Yeah.
The one that was done by a young photographer on the wildlife in Madhya Pradesh got a lot of traction. When we were taken to the run of Kutch by Navina Jafar. That created an entirely different experience.
She's a great storyteller.
She's a great storyteller. And when we went with the young team of two boys who run the global Himalayan expedition in Ladakh, that added value in a different way, because here were two very young Indians who could have done something entirely else with themselves. They were engineers, one of them is from IIT, but they actually got into a social enterprise and they brought so much value to the lives of the locals in Ladakh.
Absolutely.
They've had 65 families work out their homestays, and in a very, very ecologically balanced manner. So that found good traction, and that tells us what people are also looking for. And when we went to Lucknow, that again got
I was thinking about that.
Because there was Nawab Sahab, the way he narrated these stories, he actually took us back into the era of the bygone. And at the same time, there was a tour operator from there, I forget his name.
Pratik of Tornos.
Yes, and Pratik Hira, that's right.
Yes.
And Pratik brought out the itineraries in a very sharp manner. So there was a nice blend of the food, which was done by our chef, Pankaj. And Nawab Sahab took us back into history, and Pratik brought it all into the contemporary perspective. So I think that's what we need to do.
Yeah, so that whole thing loops in nicely.
A holistic experience, and when people want to go down and learn that little embroidery or beating the metal craft, a workshop of 3 hours or a full day workshop, I think creating those kind of real-time takeaways where people in today's life, there's so much technology, and as we talk also right now through technology, while it's wonderful, but I do believe it's a very cold platform. Connect between two humans, the sheer vibration that comes out through a human-to-human interaction is an entirely different experience.
Absolutely, yeah.
We need to create that. We need to bring that into our showcasing of whatever we do. So if I may go to a museum and if I look at a few artifacts displayed there, of course, they are splendid and I will come back impressed. But imagine if just behind the museum, there was that little workshop where you could, in your own cobbled manner, create one of those little trivia to carry back home. It changes. And, it's not just about your takeaway. It's about the appreciation of the craftsman there.
Absolutely.
It's about appreciating the labor that goes into the work that has come to the finality where we see it. It's about not only just, it's about creation of value and how the values are being created and how they have sustained over the centuries to remain in the way. And I think that's where, again, as travelers, as tourists, whether from India or whether from outside, I think we really, really owe it to ourselves as humanity to contribute to make sure that the arts and crafts and the various skills that we have all learned as humans are not lost.
Yes.
While we adopt and adapt to technology, making our lives more simpler, more sophisticated in many ways, definitely the reach is immense today. But then we have to leverage that while not losing out on the splendor of the learnings of human life of 5,000 plus years.
But one of the things we need to touch upon, and India is poised in these 4-5 months, is poised at a place, the tourism business is poised at a place where innovation in the way we work is very essential. And I know you're very focused on this, where responsible tourism is concerned. So what are the immediate issues where sustainability or responsible tourism is concerned that can be addressed immediately?
Shoba, in fact, I've been reading a lot on the whole sustainability debate and also the need to bring in value. And I would say it's not just something which we should be using as a buzzword in tourism and hospitality, but it's an approach to human life and the kind of footprint that we as humans have been making on Mother Earth. And it takes us beyond, I would say, the confines, therefore, of the experience for a tourist. And when the whole narrative started building up and finding a little more voice in the 90s to where we are now, have there been true learnings? Have we really stopped as a world to really look back and to introspect that have we not increased our needs where we didn't need to? And what kind of an impact are we leaving on Mother Earth in terms of both the climate change, the usage of materials far more, but also, it is beyond environment. It is also economic. It is also socio-cultural. And I think what we need to start working on is to build an understanding. Because somewhere when we talk about sustainability, the immediate thing is, number one, it must be more expensive.
Correct.
And it probably is, economically not viable. And therefore, let me not do that. Let me go and buy a styrofoam cup because it's probably cheaper to do that. And in terms of socio-cultural, as I've already mentioned, I think that's something I don't think we've even realized as we move along and pick new things in the, I would say, the post-industrial age social and economic build of the world, that in making the assembly line as the factor of production, somewhere we've started losing the uniqueness of countries and cultures, and the clothes, the way we made our foods, everything is becoming so standardized. So the homogenization. So therefore, but coming back to the first part of it, the environmental bit of it, I think from the ministry's perspective, we do try through all our projects to ensure that there is a lot more of the biodegradable toilets, and so making sure that you are not creating more carbon footprint. But we need to do more. We need to build that narrative so that all the projects that happen around the country, whether they are sponsored by the government or whether they are funded through the private initiative, but each of them must understand the responsibility of using local materials, how to make the livelihood also sustainable in that manner. So that's something we really build a narrative more stronger on. Talk of economic, I think a lot more education needs to be given that a cooler is not going to be more expensive in the long run, because if you see the cost benefit analysis, it doesn't always have to be the immediate. And coming to the socio-cultural, I think that's something we cannot emphasize more, because it is related to the whole narrative of not just owning up your culture, but is also about creating of employment. The moment you're going, especially in a country like India, which is so geographically wide, the moment you are creating interest for travelers down till the hinterland, the amount of employment you are generating across the board is immense. And that brings me also, therefore, to the dimension of the carrying capacity. If we are just going to create jobs in a few clusters, and there is obviously going to be a concern on the carrying capacity, because if you have a hub and you say that this is it, everybody has to come here and you'll find your jobs here, you are going to find overutilization of resources there. So I think the whole thing is so seamlessly integrated, and we need to build that narrative that when we are talking of sustainability, it's not merely the environmental sustainability that we are talking about, but it's about building a whole ecosystem.
I find this initiative that you talked about for for creating a certification course. One of the problems I've always seen is that there is a lot of talent, right? But there's a lot of inhibition, and because they don't know how. And I believe courses like this will really help people across the board. When I'm talking about responsible tourism and these are places where we can, awareness is the first thing, that people become aware of the issues that face tourism today. One of the things that you touched upon, and which I thought was very relevant, is the whole cultural aspect of it. Especially in urban India, in urban cultures, we are forgetting that sustainability was a part of our lives. It was using kullars and pattals and everything was a part of what we grew up with. It's only in the 80s you saw that shift. Suddenly plastic became the flavor, and that is where we are struggling with. I think the idea is just for us to go back to what we know, and even if you're looking at traditional cultures, yesterday was the Varalakshmi Vradam all over southern India, and the whole idea is to put all the offerings in front of her. Everything is so connected with nature, season, all of that, and it is for us through initiatives like this. And one of the Dekho Apna Desh ones, they highlighted this fact where it is about going back to the one that Soiti did. It's also going back and bringing back what we already know. So I think this will be very, very, it will be a wonderful initiative, and I hope
Absolutely. I think what you just said, and from our own lives, there are so many memories of growing up and traveling in trains and having a surai that used to be part of every family, pouring up a surai on the way and filling it with water and passing on to the next traveler many a times, and wasn't that so wonderful? And including brown bags, we've had to now push the whole movement on banning the plastics. In a country like ours, where not so long back, we were happily using brown bags. All the grocery, I remember in the 70s, used to come in brown bags. Or we used to all carry those jute ke, those thellas. There's nothing down market about it. Somewhere in the 80s and the 90s, I don't know why, but it started being down market to carry even like, oh, why should you carry your chola from home? I think somewhere... literally the artificiality of it all has caught us, and we need to just clear ourselves and realize that yes, while growing along with times, and as I said, picking the good things about technology, and there's so much good that has happened in the world, we must take it up, but not give up on some fantastic value systems that we had on the daily system. And going back even to this whole thing about food, you have some of the most celebrated health and fitness experts these days saying, you must eat what is locally available, the seasons must guide you, and they're charging you zillions for telling you something that has been part of our homes all the time. Whoever used to eat pool gobi in summers? We all knew, it comes from the cold storage, let's not eat it. It's another matter if it's now growing in that season and then you get a fresh one, fair enough. However, I think we all grew up on eating tinde and lokki and karele and bindi.
Season, and of course to top it with mangoes as dessert, right? So
and mangoes, absolutely.
And the other important thing about all of this is also personal learning, like you said, and which is why we call it more than sustainable travel. Sustainability, in my opinion, is an aspiration. The responsible tourism actually distributes the onus among everybody, right, from the traveler to the service provider, the hospitality owner, the travel agent, and also brings the government into perspective, right? So things like the plastic and things like that, but not using plastic, how you should behave in a national park, following some regulations when you go into heritage places by not ruining these things. So some of it has to become like regulations that you need to which I hope the government will kind of put out, and where tour operators actually train their teams to say, no, you cannot break that rule, right? So
you remember, I think that was the 2nd October, some time back, when the Honorable Prime Minister had said from that platform that we need to ban the use of plastics, and the water bottles, the one-time use plastic needs to go away. And a lot of momentum got built on that. But then the industry definitely needs to work with the government on that, because meetings initially, of course, it takes a while to shift, because these are practices that have come over almost last 3 decades, we can say, right? And so it takes a while to shift. But I think there has been a conscious support to the whole initiative that let's at least stop using the disposable plastic bottles. And in all the meetings,
one step at a time.
We don't use the plastic bottles anymore.
In the government offices?
More needs to be done.
Okay. You mean the government offices? Yeah?
Yeah, the government.
I'd like to end this conversation by asking you, what has been your personal take and your personal reaction to the COVID and how it has disrupted the industry?
If I may say that it's been extremely, extremely difficult, and something that none of us could have ever imagined, that here was something that was as silent as a virus. And the way it has brought the whole world literally to a standstill and for so long is something that doesn't happen too often in history. And even if we go back into the Spanish flu of 1919, for the sheer fact that the world was not so connected, the global impact was therefore far less. Today, because we are a world that is more flat and is far more connected, the impact's been actually far more. There is so much more migration of people, and so because of that, it has literally carried to every nook and corner of the world. That's the bad part of it. The good part, as I look at it, is that it reminds us of so many things. It reminds us that somewhere we as humanity were probably not doing something right. And it's a painful but nevertheless a reminder which tells us that, look, we need to stop in our tracks and we need to rethink on some of the things that we've been doing as people. And that's where it brings us to the narrative of being more responsible as citizens of the earth. That's the other takeaway. The third takeaway for me personally is that it also shows us the resilience, the sheer capacity of the human mind and the human inner, we should say, the perseverance and the resilience to survive. Because it is an unprecedented pandemic. It has created the havoc the way it has. However, we also understand through the past experiences of us in wars, and we've seen far more bloodshed than, in just 1 century that went by than ever before. And yet, cities, countries, people have emerged stronger out of those. And I think there it gives us hope that ultimately the ability and the wish to survive and the wish to come on top of any adversity defines the human capacity to think it out. And I'm sure we all shall. Dialogues like these are therefore very important. where we use this as an opportunity to introspect, to think, and to craft out better value and to emerge as a better world after the pandemic is behind.
Thank you very much, and I thank you so much for keeping the flag of India tourism flying high. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Shoba, for giving me the opportunity to speak. And the best way and the best, I would say, part of our culture, which we are again trying to remind the world is Namaste, India.
Namaste. Thank you for watching this show. Please leave your comments, share generously on your social media. This message for India tourism has to be spread far and wide. This is Shoba Mohan for the Dope News. Like us and follow us. Let's drive the change towards making sustainability in travel our collective initiative. Thank you very much.